Protests erupt in Israel after a defense minister is fired.
Clashes broke out between protesters and police who used water cannons to disperse the crowd. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Ricky Mathay.
And I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines.
Philippines requests ICC to allow response to drug war victims group. Senate reviews Department of Agriculture's preparations for water crisis. U.S. President Joe Biden declares emergency for Mississippi's storm recovery. Former U.S. President Donald Trump vows to end war in Ukraine in 24 hours. K-pop sensation Blackpink successfully holds 2 nights sold-out concerts at the Philippine Arena.
As the International Criminal Court, or ICC, probes the war on drugs under the Duterte administration, the Philippines will request to respond to the position submitted by the alleged victims. Colin Tenorio has the details.
The Philippine government will ask the Appeals Chamber of the International Criminal Court, or ICC, to allow the government to submit its response to the position that will be submitted by the representatives of the war on drugs victims under the Duterte administration. In an interview on Radio Agila program, Kasangga ang Langit, Solicitor General Menardo Guevara says the Philippine government wants to respond to the comments by the victims group. Since the complaint was filed before the ICC, Guevara says the Philippine government was not given a chance to see the details of the complaint. Last week, the appeals chamber allowed the representatives of the victims group to submit their position on the appeals brief of the Philippine government submitted last March 17.
Ang sinasabi lang namin ngayon, kung sakali man na pahintulutan dito sa stage na ito ng apela, na magkomento pa yung mga representatives ng victims groups. Sana ay mabigyan din tayo ng opportunity ang Philippine government na makasagot naman doon sa mga sasabihin ng mga biktima. Kasi yung siyam na po na alleged victims ay anonymous. Hindi namin alam kung sino yung siyam na po na nagre-reklamo na iyon. Hindi namin alam kung ano ang nature ng kanilang complaint, kung saan sila nanggagaling, kung sino ang umahawak sa kanila. Kaya parang hindi rin naman masyadong fair sa Philippine government na kami ay kumbaga parang inaatake na hindi man lang namin alam kung ano yung kanilang mga grounds, no? Kung ano yung kanilang mga reklamo.
Guevara says he expects the ICC prosecutor to submit his response and position before the appeals chamber. The Philippine government has asked the appeals chamber to defer the investigation on the war on drugs and allow the government to investigate the cases in the country. Guevara insists that the ICC prosecutor used the wrong basis in the admission of the complaint.
Sinasabi natin noon pa na hindi admissible ang Philippine situation. Ang ibig sabihin ng admissible, Ray, kung ito ay iniimbestigahan na itong sitwasyon na ito dito sa Pilipinas at yun naman ay genuine na pag-iimbestiga, ay kumbaga wala nang karapatan ang ICC na siya pang mag-imbestiga dahil ginagawa na nga natin. Yun yung principle ng complementarity. Complementary lang ang kanilang jurisdiction. Kung walang genuine investigation or hindi ginagawa or unwilling ang Philippine government, doon lang sila po pwedeng mag-imbestiga. Tama ka, Ray, na ano na natin yan, nasabi na natin yan before. Pero ngayon sa apela, ang sinasabi natin, mali ang ginawa nilang threshold or standard sa pag-evaluate ng admissibility of the situation, no?
after the prosecutor and victims groups submit their positions on the appeals brief of the Philippine government, Guevara says it would take several months before the appeals chamber hands its decision on the matter. Colleen Tenorio for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
As a water crisis looms from the anticipated El Nino, the Senate wants to know the steps and preparations being made by the Department of Agriculture, or DA. According to Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel, he will file a resolution to call for a Senate hearing and examine the possible effects of the drought. The senator argues that the DA and other government agencies, such as the Metropolitan Waterworks and sewerage system, should have laid out their plans by now. He notices their silence despite the expected severe impact of the drought, not only on water but also on crops. He adds these agencies should inform the public of their measures to avoid food shortages such as rice.
Senator Nancy Binay wants to probe the Department of Science and Technology, or DOST's, report that tons of food are being wasted in the country. Since Senate Resolution 555, Binay cites DOST data in 2019, which states that up to 930 million tons of food was wasted. According to DOST Food and Nutrition Research Institute, the most wanted or wasted food is rice, followed by meat, fish, poultry, and vegetables. Based on the 2018-2019 expanded National Nutrition Survey, each Filipino family wastes an average of 76 grams of food per plate within a day. Binay finds this situation alarming. This as the Social Weather Station survey in the last 3 months of 2022 showed that 11.8%, or about 3 million Filipinos, experienced hunger. She emphasizes the need for Congress to formulate policies to address this problem because many families are experiencing hunger.
About 1,200 individuals participated in the celebration of Earth Hour at the Quezon Memorial Circle last Saturday, March 25. Earth Hour is an annual event that encourages the public to switch off their non-essential electric lights for 1 hour from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Over 7,000 participants from 193 countries also joined the activity. In her remarks, Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte said Quezon City was the first city in the country to declare a climate emergency in 2019. This was to draw attention to the need for funding to address the climate crisis. The mayor promised that all public structures in the city will be solarized by 2030. Belmonte also encouraged the national and city governments to install solar panels in their own structures to utilize renewable energy. Quezon City also aims to increase urban farming in the city to reduce the number of trucks that come from the provinces, as these trucks emit carbon emissions.
The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, or NGCP, admits the country cannot avoid power outages. NGCP's warning came after the Energy Regulatory Commission, or ERC, denied its request for month-on-month extensions on ancillary services agreements. NGCP concluded the acceptance and opening of bids for ancillary services on March 14, 15, and 16 of this year for Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, respectively. Ancillary services are necessary for NGCP to manage power fluctuations to ensure the quality and reliability of power flowing through its system. The Philippine transmission grid will be vulnerable to power interruptions resulting from an artificial lack of ancillary services.
As the newly installed Director General of the Bureau of Corrections, or BUCOR, Gregorio Catapang Jr. announces that he will be implementing a shake-up across the entire agency. Catapang has called for a command conference with the top BUCOR officials on Tuesday, March 28. He also mentions there will be a reshuffle of personnel in all penal colonies under BUCOR. Catapang took his oath of office on Monday before Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla after being appointed as the head of BUCOR by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The official assures that reforms in BUCOR will continue. He also expresses his gratitude to President Marcos for the trust given to him.
Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla confirms that Congressman Arnulfo Teves Jr. is being considered as a mastermind in the killing of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo. Remulla says there are at least 2 to 3 masterminds involved in the crime, and Teves is one of them. When asked by the media if the government has contact with those considered masterminds of the Degamo killing, Remulla says that one of them, Congressman Teves, had texted him. Remulla states that he will still clarify this with a panel of prosecutors handling the case. However, according to the ongoing investigation, this is the direction they are heading. The congressman was already implicated in the crime by some of the arrested suspects, but Teves denied his involvement and has not yet returned to the Philippines despite the expiration of his travel authority from the House of Representatives. The lawmaker says his refusal to come back is allegedly due to the threats to his life.
The 7-day positivity rate of COVID-19 in some provinces has increased. Octa research fellow Dr. Guido David says the positivity rate in Misamis Oriental has risen from 17.1% to 26.8%. However, the positivity rate here in Metro Manila remains low at 3.2% as of March 25. On Sunday, the Department of Health, or DOH, reported 227 new cases of COVID-19 in the country, with 10 fatalities and 202 recoveries. Nationwide, the DOH noted a 3.7% positivity rate. Coming up, Mississippi residents deal with the aftermath of a deadly tornado. European Union threatens Belarus more sanctions if it hosts Russian nukes. And former U.S. President Donald Trump says he could end Ukraine war within 24 hours if re-elected. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
Tama na, may nanalo na. Uwi na. Cajun seafood!
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. People in storm-ravaged Mississippi are trying to put their lives back together after a huge tornado ripped through the southern U.S. state. At least 25 people died in the storm that shredded homes, flattened buildings, and left piles of debris. The small town of Rolling Fork has all but been wiped out by the twister. Residents spent Sunday picking through the debris to see what they can salvage. And there is more bad news. The National Weather Service is warning people to brace themselves for more storms. It says new weather systems could bring strong tornadoes and hail the size of tennis balls. The earlier weather system cut a swath 160 kilometers along the state, ravaging several towns. Dozens of people have been injured, and authorities fear the death toll will go higher.
U.S. President Joe Biden issued an emergency declaration for Mississippi after a powerful tornado tore across the state. A White House statement says the federal aid will supplement state, tribal, and local recovery efforts in the affected areas. The funding will also be available to affected people in the counties of Carroll, Humphreys, Monroe, and Sharkey. The statement adds more counties and additional forms of assistance may be designated after the damage assessments are fully completed.
Honduras ends its diplomatic ties with Taiwan and starts relations with China. This as Taipei accuses Beijing of coercion and intimidation to lure away its few remaining allies. Agila tells us more.
Honduras announces it has broken off diplomatic relations with Taiwan. The move draws immediate rebuke from Taipei as the Latin American country switches allegiances to China. Honduran Foreign Minister Enrique Reina says that upon instruction from President Xiomara Castro, he communicated to Taiwan the decision to cease diplomatic relations. The formal severing of ties comes 2 days after Reina's trip to Beijing. He was there to discuss the establishment of bilateral diplomatic ties. It also comes 11 days after Castro first announced the switch. China considers self-ruled democratic Taiwan as a part of its territory to be retaken one day by force if necessary. Under its One China policy, it does not allow countries to recognize both Beijing and Taipei. The Foreign Ministry says the government of the Republic of Honduras recognizes the existence of only one China in the world. It says the government of the People's Republic of China is the only legitimate government that represents all of China. It adds that Taiwan is an inalienable part of Chinese territory. 13 countries around the world still diplomatically recognize Taiwan. Taipei has lost several Latin American allies in recent years. Meanwhile, Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen says terminating diplomatic relations with Honduras is regrettable. She says they have believed to support the long-term and substantial development of their allies, using forward-looking and pragmatic approaches to the best of their ability. She vows, however, not to engage in a meaningless cash diplomacy contest with China. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu decries Honduras' financial demands before being lured away by China. Wu says the Castro government has at the same time asked Taiwan for billions of US dollars in huge economic assistance. He says Honduras has also compared prices offered by Taiwan and China. Honduras is one of the poorest countries in its region. With ties now to China, the Latin American country hopes Beijing will offer funds to bring its citizens out of poverty. Agila for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Taiwan ex-President Ma Ying-jeou arrived in China on Monday, the first cross-strait visit by a current or former leader of the island in more than 7 decades. Taipei's ruling party calls the trip regrettable. Ma's 12-day trip will not involve any official meetings. He will focus on paying tribute to his ancestors and promoting youth exchanges. President Tsai Ing-wen's Democratic Progressive Party accuses Ma of endorsing Beijing's Taiwan policy with his visit. China's foreign ministry offered no comment Monday on the visit, with spokesperson Mao Ning saying it was not a diplomatic issue.
Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning says China is detaining a Japanese national on suspicion of espionage. Mao asserts all foreign nationals must abide by Chinese laws. She says the suspect will be prosecuted in accordance with criminal law.
据了解，中方有关部门本月依法对一名日本公民采取了刑事强制措施进行审查。该日本公民涉嫌从事间谍活动，违反《中华人民共和国刑法》《中华人民共和国反间谍法》。中方已经按照维也纳领事关系公约和中日领事协定的相关规定，向日本驻华使馆进行了通报。
Meanwhile, Japanese government spokesperson Hirokazu Matsuno says they were informed that a Japanese man in his 50s was detained in Beijing. However, Hirokazu gives no details on the man's identity, his alleged crime, or when he has been arrested. He says that Tokyo is seeking consular access to the man.
Seoul reports North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles on Monday, which Pyongyang says are in response to major U.S.-South Korea defense drills. Prince Limonero tells us more.
As the U.S. and South Korean forces conduct large-scale military exercises off the east coast of the Korean peninsula, North Korea has launched 2 short-range ballistic missiles into the sea, according to the South Korean authorities. The 2 allies were conducting a joint amphibious landing exercise on Monday, days after concluding Freedom Shield, their largest combined military drills in 5 years. The Joint Chief of Staff of South Korea has confirmed that the planned military drills will still proceed despite the recent missile launches. North Korea views such exercises as rehearsals for invasion and has repeatedly warned it would take overwhelming action in response. Pyongyang has launched 7 missiles this month as military tensions are rising. The pace of both Pyongyang's weapons test and the U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises has accelerated in recent months in a cycle for a tit-for-tat responses. The U.S. and South Korea are now moving an aircraft carrier group to the peninsula this week for another round of joint drills. It was reported that the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Nimitz and the accompanying strike group will conduct joint maritime exercises with the Korean forces of the south coast of the peninsula on Monday, followed on Tuesday by a docking at the South Korean naval base in Busan, the southeastern port city. A total of 21 ballistic and cruise missile launches have taken place so far this year by North Korea. An exercise simulating nuclear attacks on South Korean targets was conducted last week. During the test, a nuclear-capable underwater drone was also tested, which could have caused an enormous radioactive tsunami. The North Korean missile launch is indicative of an escalation of military tensions with the United States and South Korea. The situation is under the watchful eye of the international community. Prince Limonero for Matana Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
India's parliament adjourns after noisy protests by opposition lawmakers. They are outraged over the expulsion of top opposition figure Rahul Gandhi from the House. Gandhi was stripped of his parliamentary seat on Friday. Critics say the move heightens concerns about creeping authoritarianism in the world's largest democracy. The lower house of parliament ruled Gandhi was ineligible to sit as an MP on Friday, a day after he was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment in a defamation case.
Russian President Vladimir Putin announces he will stage nuclear weapons in Belarus, drawing a sharp response from Europe. The EU's foreign policy chief has tweeted that this will threaten European security. Josep Borrell Fontelles says it would be an irresponsible escalation if Belarus hosts Russian nukes. He says the country can choose to stop it. And if the weapons are placed there, Fontelles says that the EU is ready to respond with more sanctions. Putin says the deployment is no different than what the United States has done. He says the U.S. has weapons at bases in Belgium, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands and Turkey. Experts believe any Russian nuclear strike would likely involve smaller battlefield weapons as opposed to high-powered long-range nuclear arms.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump says he can settle the conflict in Ukraine within 24 hours if he is re-elected. Trump vows this as his first presidential campaign rally in Texas.
And it's no coincidence that the deep state is coming after me even harder since I pledged to swiftly end the war in Ukraine. So when I say end it, I'm going to get a settlement very quickly. And I know both people, and you can get it very, very quickly. You can only do it through the presidency, but you control the money coming in, coming out. You can get that. I will have that settlement done within 24 hours.
Republican was speaking to several thousand supporters in the city of Waco. The former U.S. president also fires at his potential rival, Ron DeSantis, for the Republican nomination.
But when you're getting a guy so he gets the nomination because of you, he wins the election because of you, 2 years later, the fake news is up there saying, will you run against the president? Will you run? And he says, I have no comment. I say, that's not supposed to happen. I have no comment. No. So I'm not a big fan.
Thousands of Israelis take to the streets. This after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fired a minister who opposed the judicial overhaul. Israelis set up bonfires and block a highway. They protest the firing of Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Gallant broke rank, citing security concerns in calling for a pause to the government's controversial judicial reforms. Gallant had been a staunch ally of Netanyahu. On Saturday, he said they must stop the legislative process for a month because of its divisiveness. On Sunday, the Prime Minister's office said in a brief statement that Gallant was dismissed. After the firing, mass protests erupted around the country. Clashes broke out between protesters and police, who used water cannons to disperse the crowd.
French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne says she will meet with opposition leaders early next month. She says she is open to talking with unions about the government's pension reforms. Her comments yesterday come ahead of another day of action planned for Tuesday. The unpopular reforms, which raise the retirement age from 62 to 64, have sparked weeks of protests. Many of the demonstrations have turned violent as the public vents its anger toward the government. Borne says she is open to talk, saying the government has to find the right path. She adds things need to calm down. But the Prime Minister says the reforms will go ahead, subject to approval by the Constitutional Council. Opposition parties are pinning their hopes on the council ruling against the reforms. This because they have been forced through parliament without a vote. President Emmanuel Macron's government faces another test tomorrow. Unions launch a new day of action against the changes.
Up next, Russia and Burundi work for peaceful use of nuclear energy. Most people choose not to vote on Cuba's parliamentary election day. And find out what happened to Lebanon's time confusion. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will return with more global news.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Abangan sa Counterpoint. First and exclusive interview with former Department of Health Secretary Francisco Duque III. Sa unang pagkakataon, sasagutin na ang mga isyong binabato sa kanya. Natatandaan ko pati 15 senador ang nanawagan, pati yung isang gobernador sa Bicol na ikaw ay magbitiw sa tungkulin.
Dahil nga sa kakulangan ng kaalaman nila, lahat sila ay naghahanap ng masisisi.
So how can you be incompetent? Sa family, parang dinawit ka rin doon. Huwag niyong palalampasin. Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi sa Net 25.
Puros mga sabi-sabi, wala naman mga ebidensya.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders, Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center.
back to Mata ng Agila International. In Canada, the city of Toronto releases the most recent data on residents experiencing homelessness. The report reveals individuals without homes are at risk of dying younger than the median age of death. Yolanda Espinos reports.
Toronto has seen an average of 3 deaths per week in 2022 among people experiencing homelessness, according to recent data released by Toronto Public Health this month. It is reported that 187 people experiencing homelessness died last year. They are also at risk of dying prematurely. To compare, for the general population in Toronto, the median age of death is 79 years old for men and 84 years old for women. For people who experience homelessness, that median age of death is alarmingly almost cut in half, 55 years old for men and 42 years old for women. Drug toxicity is the leading cause of death for people experiencing homelessness in the city, followed by cardiovascular disease, cancer, unintentional injuries, and suicide. Almost 30% of the reported deaths have unknown causes. Toronto Public Health vows to continue working with the city in implementing the Toronto Drug Strategy, creating affordable housing, and addressing opioid-related deaths in Toronto's shelter system. Reporting from Toronto, Canada, Yolanda Espinos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Ibero-American Leaders Summit addresses a food crisis affecting a fifth of Latin America's population. The summit started in the Dominican Republic on Friday. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization says Latin America and the Caribbean is the region of the world where eating a basic healthy diet is most expensive. It is at $3.89 per person per day in 2020. This compared to $3.19 in North America and Europe. The UN says it is a price that 22.5% of the region's population cannot afford. In 2020, there were more than 130 million people in the region. Fighting hunger, improving access to credit, and managing migration flows are among the issues addressed by the leaders during the summit. Heads of state and governments from 14 in Latin America and Europe take part in the plenary session. Spain's King Felipe VI, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa are among those gathered in Santo Domingo with the leaders of Chile, Uruguay, Honduras, and others.
Cubans spent Sunday voting in parliamentary elections. While the results are a foregone conclusion, the real issue is how many people choose not to vote. About 8 million people are eligible to cast a ballot. They have 470 candidates to select from to fill the 470 seats in parliament. Many Cubans call the election a farce and choose to stay home. Voting is not compulsory. The number of people who abstain has been rising in recent years. Just over 2/3 cast a ballot in November's municipal elections. That's down from 74% who voted on a referendum 2 months earlier. Cuba's communist government does not allow opposition, so all of the candidates are members of the Cuban Communist Party. Voters have 2 choices on their ballots. They can select the names of any number of individual candidates, or they can select a vote for all options.
A South African has been held hostage by jihadists in Mali for over 5 years. His wife launched a fresh appeal for his release Saturday. This just days after a French journalist was freed. 47-year-old Verko van Deventer was kidnapped in Libya on November 3, 2017. He was on his way to a power plant construction site around 1,000 kilometers south of the capital, Tripoli. 3 other Turkish engineers seized at the same time as him were freed 7 months later. Van Deventer remains in captivity after being moved to Mali. His wife, Shireen, says they desperately need him back.
Yes, I think I would say I am launching a fresh appeal, but it's still the same appeal that, we desperately need him home. He's the father of 3 children, 2 beautiful sons, and they desperately need their father back home. his parents miss him, his siblings miss him, and then very lastly, and I miss him. I need him home. It's time. It's been too long. There's a big void in our lives without him. And so my appeal is really just, we need him home now. We really desperately need him home now.
The U.S. Geological Survey, or USGS, says it has discovered massive oil and gas deposits in North Africa. USGS reports the deposits extend through vast territories of Libya and Tunisia. The deposits can be found within the Pelagian Basin in Tunisia and western Libya, and the Sirte Basin in Libya. U.S. Energy Information Administration, or EIA, reports that African countries can contain a sum of 4 trillion barrels of oil and 385 billion cubic feet of natural gas, which is equivalent to 1.47 trillion barrels of liquefied natural gas. In 2021, Libya ranked as the 7th largest crude oil producer of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, and the 3rd largest in Africa. EIA data shows Libya holds 3% of the world's proven oil reserves and 39% of Africa's. Meanwhile, the EIA estimates Tunisia holds 23 trillion cubic feet of proven shale gas reserves and 1.5 billion barrels of oil.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow and Burundi are working on an agreement on the peaceful use of nuclear energy. RT correspondent Donald Corder tells us more.
Well, one thing that both foreign ministers said is that cooperation needs to be increased essentially across all spheres. And one of the main ones that you mentioned is the peaceful development of Burundi's atomic energy sector. The Burundi foreign minister said that atomic energy needs to become essential in lighting the country's roads as well as its homes and its buildings. And we also heard more talk about further cooperation in the sphere of healthcare. Russia wants to help Burundi combat the spread of infectious diseases, specifically COVID-19. And this is really building upon cooperation that's already existed. We also did hear the Burundian foreign minister say that he brought up the United Nations and the fact that the African continent is not represented on the Security Council. He called this a historic injustice that needs to be corrected.
You know that Africa is the only continent in the world that has no representation among the permanent members of the Security Council. We are underrepresented among regular members of the Security Council, and I think it's unfair. It is a historical injustice. We are excluded, and 1.3 billion people, hence, are underrepresented in the Security Council. For the African continent, it is unacceptable.
Now, both foreign ministers also said that defense cooperation is developing in a positive way as well. Specifically, both countries working together to combat terrorism in the region, as well as help Burundi protect its national sovereignty at a time where many countries, specifically Western countries, are trying to meddle in the internal affairs of countries on the African continent. There was also a little talk about the Ukraine conflict. The Burundian foreign minister said that his country stands for peace in resolving conflicts and negotiations, and he said that that can be extended to the Ukraine conflict as well, and that's obviously long been the position of Russia. So this is another area where both countries see eye to eye, and essentially that is a general roundup of the main topics that were discussed at this meeting.
There is confusion in Lebanon over what time it is. The uncertainty is the result of a last-minute government decision to delay a switch to daylight saving time. Normally, clocks are changed in the last week of March, like many other countries in the Northern Hemisphere. But the government announced last Thursday that the time change is being delayed until April 20th. Religious institutions, some schools and media outlets went ahead with the time change anyway. That has left the small country divided between two time zones. Middle East Airlines says it will adhere to the government-ordered delay, but it says it will move departure times by 1 hour to adhere to international flight schedules. The government has given no reason for its decision.
In Seoul, South Korea, a zebra escapes its pen and roams for hours. Sero the zebra captivates the internet and sparks thousands of memes. Sero spent 3 hours Thursday trotting along roads and dodging cars before he was finally cornered by park wardens. The 3-year-old zebra was tranquilized and caught using a safety fence after he entered a narrow alleyway. Officials say Sero is now safely back at the zoo. Seoul Children's Grand Park says he is back in his pen, stable, healthy, and sound.
A controversial gold mine in Thailand is back in operation. The mine has been shut down for the past 6 years. This after the government forced it to close over health and environmental concerns. The mine is located in northern Thailand and straddles 3 rural provinces. Villagers in the area say it poisoned their crops and livestock. The mine's Australian owner have been seeking compensation from the government. After negotiations last year, the government has decided to allow mining to resume. The owners say the mine will give the region an economic boost. While some may welcome the jobs that will be created, others worry about several things: dangerous chemicals, noise from the blasting, and dust, which can cause respiratory illness. Mine owner Akara Resources says it will earmark some of the royalties. They will be used for a community support fund and a health monitoring program.
Meanwhile, there's more unrest in France. Protesters and police in the country's southwest clashed over a disputed water storage facility. Environmentalists say the giant reservoir under construction will distort access to water during drought conditions. The reservoir will provide water to farmers so they can irrigate their crops. On the weekend, thousands of protesters clashed with police. The violence has left one demonstrator fighting for his life after sustaining a severe head injury. Authorities say 7 protesters, 29 police officers, and 2 journalists have been injured. Protesters threw projectiles at police, who responded with tear gas, a water cannon, and rubber bullets. A number of people have been arrested. The recent unrest in France has forced the cancellation of a visit by Britain's King Charles III.
Coming right up, Russian fish imports nearly 20% in the European Union. Filipino-American chosen as New York Yankees opening day shortstop. And Blackpink rocks Philippine Arena for a 2-night concert. Catch more news when Mata ng Agila International returns. A bug has exposed user data of OpenAI's ChatGPT. OpenAI announced on its website it suffered an outage and data breach. Previously, tech experts warned about the service being a cybersecurity risk. The company reports that the bug leaks unintentionally visible information about its users. This includes the active user's name, email address, payment address, last 4 digits of a credit card number, and expiration date. OpenAI explains that the bug only affects 1.2% of ChatGPT Plus subscribers who were active during a specific 9-hour span. The company has promised to improve its system security to prevent any further incidents. CEO Sam Altman posted a tweet that the company felt awful about what happened.
Russian Fishery Industry Association reports fish imports in the European Union raised nearly 20% in 2022. Association President German Seferev says the small increase in imports was likely due to wholesalers and processors stockpiling for possible sanctions on Russian fish. Eurostat data shows a year-on-year raise on European Union fish imports of 18.7% to nearly 200,000 tons. Meanwhile, the value of Russian fish exports soared 57.6% to 940 million euros, with the Netherlands, Poland, and Germany as the biggest buyers. In 2022, the European Union had 4.4 million tons of fish and seafood imports, with 4.5% coming from Russia.
First Citizens Bank Shares Incorporated has agreed to buy Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB. First Citizens said it had agreed to purchase all loans, assets, customer deposits, and certain other liabilities of SVB. The 17 former branches of SVB will open on Monday as Silicon Valley Bank, a division of First Citizens Bank. The transaction includes a sale of $72 billion in assets at a discount of $16.5 billion. First Citizens Bank is under control of U.S. regulator, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC. The FDIC estimates the cost of SVB's failure to its deposit insurance fund to be approximately $20 billion. SVB, a key lender to the tech industry since the 1980s, became the biggest U.S. bank to fail since 2008.
University of Chicago researchers have released software called Glaze to protect art from copycat artificial intelligence. University programmers say Glaze's emergence arose from artists' outrage against programs like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. These AI programs mimic art styles available on the internet. The team behind Glaze says the software acts as a style cloak when the art is posted online. The program alters tiny details digitally, invisible to the human eye. The team adds when someone uses Glaze, Stable Diffusion will not learn that artist's style. Instead, the art will be interpreted as a different style, for example, that of Vincent van Gogh. Project supervisor Sean Shan says artificial intelligence is evolving rapidly, but there must be some guardrails regulating it.
As the 2023 PBA Governors Cup semifinals begun, Barangay Ginebra takes 2-0 lead over San Miguel and won apiece for TNT Meralco series. After Game 1, Ginebra continued their domination against San Miguel with a 2-0 lead. Scotty Thompson helped the Kings win in Game 2, 121-103, where he recorded a triple-double of 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists. Meanwhile, Meralco shocked TNT in Game 2 with a 124-117 win, tying the series at 1-1. Cliff Hodge provided energy for the team, where he ignited with 15 points and 9 rebounds. Game 3 of both series will be on Wednesday, March 29, where Ginebra tries to eliminate San Miguel and book their ticket into the finals.
The New York Yankees has named Filipino-American Anthony Volpe as its opening day shortstop. On Sunday, the Yankees chose 21-year-old Volpe for the upcoming Major League Baseball season. It was announced personally by Yankees manager Aaron Boone when he summoned Volpe to his office. Rated as the number 5 prospect by MLB Pipeline, Volpe influenced the Yankees' decision with a terrific 17 spring games performance. Volpe's mother, Isabella, is an anesthesiologist and originally hails from the Philippines, while his father is an American urologist. Volpe's professional baseball journey will start on March 30, where the New York Yankees will play the San Francisco Giants at home.
The UK's two greatest universities, Oxford and Cambridge, battle it out in a boat race, one of the world's oldest and most famous amateur sporting events. And this year, Cambridge wins the prestigious race. From London, United Kingdom, our correspondent Love Ann Season tells us more.
Both Cambridge men's and women's teams won the varsity boat race on Sunday, but their victory was overshadowed by the collapse of an Oxford University rower.
Cambridge won the varsity boat race on Sunday, but their victory was overshadowed by the collapse of an Oxford University rower. There were worrying signs at the finish on London's River Thames, with Oxford stroke Felix Drinkhall slumped in the dark blues boat following a race that took place in rough water, which made it tough for both crews. Drinkhall was subsequently carried off on a stretcher and into an ambulance that took him to hospital. In the 168th edition of the race, which involves crews from England's two oldest universities, Cambridge held off a late charge from Oxford to win by just over a length as they posted their 4th victory in 5 editions. Both boats were warned about being too close together early on by the race umpire as Oxford, the heavier of the two crews, pulled ahead. An unusually bold move by Cambridge cox Jasper Parrish paid dividends when, quickly assessing the tricky conditions, he steered the crew to the Fulham bank in the hope of finding calmer waters. Parrish's move proved the difference as Cambridge maintained a slender lead on the 4.25 miles, 6.83 kilometers course from Putney to Mortlake. Cambridge now lead Oxford 86-81 with one dead heat in a race first staged in 1829. The light blues win meant Cambridge enjoyed a double success after their women's crew triumphed on the Thames early Sunday to record their 6th successive boat race win. Both women's boats broke records last year, with Cambridge winning by 2 1/4 lengths. But Sunday's conditions meant those records remained intact, with Cambridge President Cuiva Dempsey the only returning rower and no Olympians in either of the 2023 crews.
This is Love Ann Season from London, United Kingdom, reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
This weekend, thousands of fans of the popular K-pop girl group Blackpink flocked to the Philippines for the highly anticipated Born Pink concert. The event took place at the Philippine Arena, known as the world's biggest indoor arena, with a staggering 55,000 seating capacity. The concert also drew the attention of several notable celebrities and P-pop groups who were seen enjoying the show. Mia Villa tells us more.
Pink World Tour Day 1 here in the Philippines.
K-pop sensation Blackpink has dubbed their Filipino fans, or Blinks, as the loudest crowd after their 2-night concert in the Philippine Arena, which turns out to be a resounding success. The group expressed their gratitude towards their fans for their unwavering support, evident in the constant screams and dance moves that filled the entire venue. The 2-night concert, held in the largest indoor arena in the world, was attended by over 90,000 Filipino Blinks, according to estimates. Blackpink kicked off their performance with a string of their hit songs, including How You Like That, Pretty Savage, and Whistle. Blackpink received an overwhelming response from their Filipino Blinks, who showed unparalleled enthusiasm by screaming and dancing throughout the entire concert. The group embraced the energy and fed off of the crowd's passion, resulting in an unforgettable experience for all. In this video, Filipino blinks can be seen doing a fan wave that delighted the members of Blackpink. During the encore stage of Day 2, fans sang happy birthday to Blackpink member Lisa and surprised her with a birthday cake prepared by her local fan base, Team Lisa PH. Local celebrities and vloggers were in attendance at the Blackpink concert, including Andrea Brillantes, Sanya Lopez, Zainab, Mavi and Kazi Legaspi, Darren Espanto, Kailin Alcantara, Denise Laurel, and many others. Not to be outdone, P-pop groups such as SB19 and Fourth Impact also attended the Blackpink concert and were equally thrilled to witness the group's electrifying performances. Also among those who enjoyed the K-pop girl group's concert were Net25 stars such as Pia Guanyo-Mago, who was accompanied by her two adorable daughters, and even her husband Steve Mago, who also had a great time during the performances. Goodwill leading actress Devon Seron and news anchor Ricky Mathay were also present at the concert. The local Blackpink fan bases came up with various ways to show their support, including a plane towing a banner that was spotted at the venue. Blackpink's Born Pink Philippine tour made history as the first K-pop act to hold back-to-back sold-out concerts at the Philippine Arena. Music fans are excited to see who will be the next act to perform at the Philippine Arena. Mea Villa for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In other news, Prince Harry made an unexpected appearance at London's High Court over allegations of unlawful gathering. He arrived for a hearing for his libel claim against Associated Newspapers. Harry sued the publisher over its article that alleged he offered to pay for police protection only after bringing a separate legal fight against Britain's government. However, lawyers for the newspaper insist Harry's case is built on sand.
The Fresh Del Monte company in Costa Rica markets its exclusive pink pineapple internationally. The genetically modified fruit was created with bioengineering techniques. Biologist Helga Rodriguez says the pink pineapple only produces lycopene, which accumulates during its ripening process. Investigation manager Mario Sanchez shares the results came to fruition after 17 years of research from 2003 to 2020 in the lab. The pink pineapple is exported to countries with microclimates such as the United States, Canada, UAE, Qatar, and others. Rodriguez says microclimate promotes the production of the pink fruit. However, the Ministry of Health has yet to permit authorization of the pink pineapple's commercialization in the country. The pink pineapple can only be bought online. It's Monday again, and to help you start this week, here's a quote from 18th century American writer Mark Twain. The secret of getting ahead is getting started.
So remember, the journey of 1,000,000 miles or 1,000 miles begins with that singular first step. So take it. You will never know where it will take you.
Exactly. You won't get anywhere if you don't start, right?
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Ricky Matay.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.